We are live. Hi, good evening. I'd like to say good evening to everybody and welcome to Smart Terms. Oh, it's counting down.
Yeah.
Good evening and welcome to Smart Terms first webinar of the new year for 2025. So I'd like first to wish everybody a wonderful 2025. And so tonight we're really going to be discussing an incredibly interesting, important, and timely conversation, leveraging technology for student success. And I will be your moderator this evening. My name is Fanta Williams, and I'd like to introduce our two esteemed, distinguished speakers who are going to be discussing the topic this evening. So, Shamir, I hope you don't mind, but I think I will start, with ladies first. So I'd like to first introduce Ola Smith. Ola Smith is an education entrepreneur dedicated to helping students master the art of learning. She founded Meristem, and I hope Meristem Learning, apologies, partnering with parents and teachers to create intuitive, integrated personal learning systems, known for her passion for true education, which is something we're going to touch on. I'd like to know what your thoughts on true education, Ola. But Ola envisions all students becoming self-directed, competent, confident solutionists who are driven to reach their potential and serve purposely in the unique and impactful ways. Welcome, Ola. Mouthful, but every word, every single word is ripe with meaning. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. And last but certainly not least is Shamir Sadler. He's co-founder, if you didn't know that, and chairman of Smart Term Limited. Smart Term, as you know, is one of the fastest growing tech startups and leading ed tech platform in the Caribbean region. And he has, his bio is massively long, but I'll touch just on a few things that I think are very important. He is definitely a tech guy. He is an engineering manager. He was an engineering manager at Jibe, a US startup. He's worked with Microsoft initially on Windows Small Business Server Operating Systems. It's powered millions of businesses globally. He joined Goldman Sachs, an investment firm, as an engineer there. And was the first forms engineer, helped them develop the first forms engine. Samir now serves as the senior software development manager at Amazon, where he leads a world-class team of engineers building next generation applications. I think we'll stop there, Shamir. I think that's a tremendous amount. But top of your priority is the work that you do with Smart Terms. So good evening to you both.
Good evening.
Good evening. Good evening.
So if there's no real questions or statements, did anybody wanted to say anything out the box before we get started?
No, I'll just say excited to be on the first webinar for the year. I think it's going to be great conversations. I think there's going to be a lot to share, lots of insight. And Ola, happy to embark on this first webinar with you. And I think we're going to have some good conversations today.
Yes, I think so too. I am honored to be here. This is definitely a most important conversation given the changing times, swiftly changing times. So I am happy to be a part of it and to contribute.
Wonderful. Thank you for that. So before we continue, I'd first also like to send, I guess I could say, a shout out to our partners, Greenbuy, who are also streaming this in Nigeria. So this is another first for Smart Term in terms of the partnership that you would have signed on with Greenbuy last year. So I'd like to welcome them as well, our friends in Nigeria, and thank them for joining. So let's get into it. I think, if I were to just, set up this question, for me, it's like, it's such a dynamic time, right? When you're talking about education and technology, you're seeing, it's almost a perfect storm of technology coming to the forefront. At the top of that list, I think now is AI. I think even more so with the launch of DeepSeek, you're seeing a real set of conversations happening around what the future of AI looks like. And it's a challenge for teachers. I think it's a unique opportunity for students, but I do think it's a unique technology provides a unique opportunity for everyone. And I think, rather than us walking through it white knuckled, I think, we have to learn, especially in this region, how we can embrace that technology in an effective way to support the education system within the region, and possibly globally. So, that being said, understanding the current landscape, what are the key challenges students face in achieving academic success in today's digital age? Ola, would you like to start?
Sorry. Yes, you were breaking up a little bit there for me. But yes, there's so much good and bad that we can say about technology, about AI, right? There is generally, as it pertains to students, you would get quite often, at least from parents, as the time changes, it progresses, of course, that too much computer, too much phone, the technology is messing up our education, messing up the students. But now, as time goes on, and we see how much technology can help, how much good there is coming out of technology for education and for students. Yes, we have so many pros, we have advantages, but there are still challenges that go with it. One of them, for me, because I have worked so long one on one with students, you see sometimes the disadvantages in terms of focus and attention, right? You would say a lot of people would agree that the cell phones, personal cell phones, can be a big distraction for students. The internet, what is out there, YouTube, but there is also so much good. So the challenge is in helping students to know how to use technology for good, from the simplest being the devices themselves and the internet, straight to the latest technology and AI, how to use it to help with your education and not to abuse it, not to have it be a distraction. Social media can also be very, very helpful if you follow the right channels, if you use it for good. So for me, the challenge is in helping students to understand where the line is, how technology can help them, and how it can hurt. And aside from the focus and attention, there is also the the problems we see with how they learn, how it affects your ability to just sit and focus as well. So aside from being distracted, but having so much fast content, short videos, all of that, then the attention span is getting a bit short. And that's one of the biggest challenges for me.
Thank you. Shamir?
Yes, great response there. I think Ola, you took one of mine. I think in today's time, I mean, very different from when the company started 9 years ago. I think we had different challenges, and I think it does speaks volumes to how fast-paced our environment is, and our children are trying to adapt to that fast-paced environment. Today, I think one of the biggest challenges we have is intrinsic motivation, just being motivated to want to embrace the current curriculum in our schools, right? I do believe the way kids are learning today, the technologies that they're interacting with, they're learning at such a fast pace outside of the classroom. It's really hard to stay motivated inside the classroom. And you mentioned Ola, social media, you mentioned the different channels which are consuming information. They're learning so quickly. And I think in our academic setup, our curriculum, we need to change that to fit the pace at which kids are learning today. So I think one of the biggest challenges is motivation in general. Another challenge that we face across the board, is equity. Not all kids have access to the same technology, the same resources. And they don't necessarily have the ability to learn at the same pace. And that's something that we've always been trying to solve. How do we bridge that gap and make education resources available to everyone, um, ideally free, right? But how do we make that available to everyone in a scalable way? And that would solve or mass education needs, because currently today some are motivated, or some are positioned well, I should say, to learn and get the best education, but some are definitely left behind. So you look at, so those are the two big challenges I see, is just really how do we make it equitable across the board, and how do we make sure that the kids are motivated to want to learn, with the correct curriculum that's in front of us. And both need to be looked at. Curriculum reform is something that's going across most islands right now, and Smart Term is actively looking to be a part of those conversations. And in terms of equity, how do we make the solutions that are out there available to everyone? I think that's something that we should look at.
That
Yes.
is great points from both of you. I think, with Ola, it's about, guardrailing use of technology, right? It's giving access and giving awareness to, I think, students, teachers, and parents, where the good is, in the technology and how they can access it. Because you're right, there's everything is kind of accidentally evolving in terms of what you're finding on these mediums. Sometimes you're not aware of what your children are seeing, so it's a challenge. And I think, what Shamir has said that I think is really important is how do we democratize education, this next new iteration of education in the region? How do we bridge the digital divide and make sure that we have universal access? And finding in small island developing states, which a lot of the Caribbean is, much of the Caribbean is, funding that allows for that level of, equitable distribution of the technology, to everyone. So I think those are exceptional points. I'd like to touch on, so we've talked kind of about, big tech, right? What technology is big time. But can you kind of drill down for me a bit into the types of technology that you think would be useful for students?
I think that's a question for Smart Term. Generally, in terms of what you all are seeing working with students big time. But for me, I know that one of the things that I have seen make a difference, and I know it will continue to, is simple learning software, learning apps that can help with specific issues. So, of course, even as we go into the conversation, I know we will talk about differences among apps and the types of things that will make them superior. But software that can be intuitive, that it can be personalized, customized to students, not just general information. You watch the video, you answer questions, and you move on. That's basically a textbook, right? But software that can be personalized and that can fit different contexts, different learning contexts, whether you're learning by yourself or within a class. These are the things that will make a big difference, I think.
Yeah.
Shamir,
Um,
you had anything to add?
yeah. So again, I'll touch on two important points, right? Again, back to the motivation bit. The technologies that are most engaging, like Ola said before, user experience matters and the engagement matters. So we have to focus on how we personalize education so the engagement is there. It's very frustrating, if I get on the platform, I've completed 3 out of 5 topics. I mastered the first three, but then I have to do those three again because it doesn't know that I need to go to step 4, right, which is the fourth topic. It's extremely frustrating. And then, our kids have to go through that on a day to day, regular basis. I mean, you learn in the textbook, if the class moves at the same pace, it's very difficult. There's nothing that is engaging and motivating that child to continue striving for more because the environment is impersonalized. And that's something that we need to get to, and that builds motivation. The next thing is about making things come alive. We talked about equity a bit, so I'll kind of dive in there. You might not be able to go to the field trip. You might not be able to go to Europe. You might not be able to travel to other islands. But with the technology that's in front of you, you can bring that to life. Like I can see the volcano in St. Vincent, for example. Even though I'm Jamaican, I've never been there. I can go to Trinidad and see Lake the asphalt, right, and say, hey, oh, this is a pitch lake, and this is what it's like, right? How do you learn and how you bring that to life and make it more engaging? And so I think the most useful technologies that we have today, don't discount YouTube, for example. Of course, it's old technology now compared to what's out there, but bring those videos brought things to life. So how do we bring VR, AR into the fold? Say, hey, we're gonna bring science labs to life. We're going to bring real life training scenarios to you, right? I think those are technologies right now that would make education move much faster. The next thing is making education, again, because of the ethics of this, making it more accessible. So, for example, why can't I do chemistry if my school doesn't have a chemistry lab? But I'm very interested in chemistry. How do we get those type of technologies into the hands of students so that they can actually learn these tools and actually do labs virtual, for example, right? So those are the type of tools that we're looking for to kind of bridge the gap. And we mentioned AI, so that was on the personal learning side. And how do we bring more engaging tools into the mix so that we can provide kids with all the opportunity that they're looking for. I'll mention one cool tool by someone who's not very popular right now, but he built something that I think is really helping the disabled community. Right, so they're able to put technology in, and someone who's disabled wasn't able to walk for all his life. They're able to tap in, and he's able to now send signals to the computer just by thinking about it so that he can engage and learn and do things. And the other day he was playing one of the video games that I love to play, and he's doing this all from just thinking. So when you think about in the future and just engaging with technology and how you learn, we're going to be more dialed in. We're going to be more engaged. We're going to be fully plugged into what's going on with our landscape. And so I'm not really concerned about the engagement pieces. I'm just more concerned about the accessibility to it. So as we're building more engaging technology, as we're building more technology that is more will give kids motivation to step outside their comfort zone. How do we do that in a safe way, and in a way that Fanta, you mentioned earlier, has some guardrails on it, because our kids will be consuming content at such a fast pace. We need to be able to kind of protect them.
I'm glad
I,
you mentioned, sorry, I'm glad you
go ahead,
mentioned
Ola.
engagement because that has been such a big issue for educators, especially for younger students, even in secondary school. Just the motivation and engagement in learning a topic is it can be all over the place across the class, right? And to be able to capture everyone's attention, everyone has to be interested, motivated to learn this, and being able to have technology that can make things practical. Like you said, I should be able to learn even if my school doesn't have a chemistry lab. Being able to engage and make things come alive, like you said, in other parts of the world, wherever it's happening, I can see real life examples of this thing. Relevance helps with student engagement so much. So bringing things out of that abstract realm, which is sometimes the issue with learning topics that they can't see the applicability for. They can't see why this is relevant to me. Why do I need to learn this now? Where will I need this in my life? And I know because I asked those questions straight up through university, right? If I don't see where it's going to go, I'm not very interested. So to be able to have them apply things as soon as possible and integrate the syllabus as much as possible. So yes, curriculum reform, right? And it must happen if we are adopting new technology and bringing it into the schools. Then curriculum reform is a must because it completely changes the way we teach, and already the way students are learning is changing.
Yeah,
So I agree 100%.
yeah,
Absolutely. I think, amazing points on, you know, where we need to go. I like your idea, Ola, of, you know, finding ways to connect with each student, because what I think we do is we apply a very homogenous way of teaching, right, to a very diverse set of learners, right? And now we have a lot of, definitions around that with neurodivergence and all of these things. And we're seeing that there's gaps in the ability or the capacity of the education system to support these unique challenges. And technology provides an opportunity for that. And then what Shamir is saying is the technology is already being used, it's already being consumed. How do we now, transform it to be applicable to education and identify the gaps where technology can address the challenge, right? Because it's not going to work for everything, but it's an amazing example of, if I want to do chem and I don't have a chemistry teacher or I don't have a chemistry lab, you can interactively use a chemistry lab anywhere once you have the technology. And so I think the ability to build out these types of solutions, as you rightly said, Ola, is where, it's where we need to get to. It's where we need to go, because we do need ultimately to continue to drive relevance for teachers, relevance for students who are very high consumers of technology in comparison to many of us. Their level of consumption is tremendous. And find a way to bridge the gap between the two. But also, as I said, with guardrails, right? Because again, and guardrails not just to keep out, but also guardrails in that we can make sure that it includes. So a lot of our culture, a lot of Caribbean culture, and a lot of things about our history and so
Yes.
forth can now be integrated into curriculum in very unique ways that couldn't be done before. So I think, both of you touched on, tremendously important aspects. I want to touch on one last thing, only because I think it's the roadmap we need to get where we want to go, and that is data analytics. So talk to me a bit about that. What information do you think technology, from a data analytical perspective, is useful across the entire ecosystem? Teachers, administrators, ministers, parents, etc., in terms of the whole education ecosystem. How can data analytics help?
As I think about when we're working with all people, right? And we do exams. There's end of term exams. What is happening? We sometimes the teachers would come back and go through the paper with the class, right? And you would see where you went wrong, question by question. So they do question analysis, and this really would be helpful for the student to know, okay, these are the things I need to work on, right? So that you can see it's not just that I'm doing poorly in math, but there are certain issues here. It's that I'm not showing enough working or whatever it is. With technology involved, when you have the data feeding into the system live, as you answer questions, as you teach, you're getting feedback from the entire classroom and for individual students. Everything now can be adjusted according to programming to give good data, to give quick data that you don't need to take an entire class, an entire period, an entire week to go through the system to see where are we failing, where can we do better. But the data will be quick with the software, right? So I can see how this would help teachers to adjust their methods, to pinpoint certain students very quickly before end of term. We don't need to wait until the end of the school year or the end of the term to address certain issues. And then, of course, we can quickly see where certain exercises were more helpful, certain apps were more helpful, all of that. But I'm thinking of this from what data analytics used to look like and the process that it required before all of the technology being involved in it. So if most of your teaching is being done using technology, then this can be applied much quicker. The results from the data can be sifted through, can be collated much faster, and then schools, educators, parents can make decisions to make changes with swiftness that really helps the child to progress.
Yeah, great answers. Well, I think you're spot on in terms of the speed. Speed is one of the biggest things. I think when we just got into the space, when we realized how long it took to aggregate student grades across the country, 6 months to a year. By the time you get all that data in place, the students already changed grades, they already moved on.
Mm-hmm.
Little to no help can be made at that point, right? So the data is really just informative. It wasn't really being used in a way that could impact the current batch of students, and so that's a big issue. One of the things at Smart Term that we did was try to focus on all key stakeholders. So that's students, teachers, parents, admins, principals, and government officials. All of these stakeholders need data to inform them on how to improve and what changes they need to make. And by doing this, we now address all areas and all segments of education in a very important way. So, for example, through our Tambrin module, if you're learning as a student and you're studying for CPA or PEP exam, parents and students have access to that data right away. So as you answer a question, like you said, you're now able to see not just that you got 80% in math, but these are the topics and the lessons that you need to focus on. So while I aced fractions, I didn't do so well on decimals. And now instead of the parents saying, go do the test again, the entire test, right?
Mm-hmm.
Or go do a new past paper test, not knowing why they got 80. Now the parent can actually focus on just decimals. But that's really the only thing that needs to be worked on. And so that kind of intervention happens much faster and it's much more efficient than the way that we learn, right? You take a teacher, for example, with the data that they can use. Now, that same teacher, using the CPM PEP example, that same teacher can now see across the classroom what topics the class is strong in, what topics the class is weak in. They know where to focus when they're doing extra classes or they're doing early work. And per each student, they can even go personal and make it personalized for the student in the class. They know that this student in particular needs help in this particular area, and inform the parent and also focus with them in that way in the class. Now, today or back in the day, without that data, the class is all doing the same thing. So if we all doing early work on fractions, even though I'm good in fractions, I doing early work on fractions, not really working on the areas that I'm weak in. And then you take that up to the principal level. Now they can make school-wide policy changes alongside the board because they're seeing the data in front of them and they can make the adjustments and changes that are needed. They need to double down on math teachers because the school needs to improve in math. They know that's where the investment needs to happen, right? If they need to inform the ministry that, hey, we need specialists in these areas because the students are not performing well, they have that data. Now, imagine all of that aggregating and bubbling up to the government level. Now, the government has that same data. They know that the students need help in math, and we know that they need help in math. We saw what happened last year, right? So,
Yes, we did.
but it shouldn't have happened at CXC, and that's a point I'm making. This information should have been caught way before and could have put interventions in place to address the issue, right? And that's why it's so important for us to adapt technology this way, adopt technology in this way, because by having a core engine and a core system, you will get these triggers much earlier. And you would have known from diagnostic tests, mock exams, and everything else that the students needed some level of intervention and they needed a tool that can help them focus on the areas that they're weak in and can make the changes that are required. So for us at Smart Term, data is important because we want our stakeholders to have these triggers that they can intervene quickly and fix quickly, right? And that way, because of that fast response, education will be more efficient for them. And hopefully, we can engage the child even deeper because we're now meeting them where they are, as
Mhm.
opposed to forcing them to be in this general environment, learning at everyone else's pace. So
Mhm.
that's why we love data as Smart Term, and those are the things that we put in place to help enable our stakeholders and our clients to do more.
And
Wow.
definitely that should lead to fewer students being left behind, being overlooked, because there's data on every student at any point in time. You can see what is happening and address it quickly. So I could see, the ripple effect of this going so far that everyone, more and more, you capture more students with a good solid education. No one with excuses as to why they were left behind because teachers didn't have enough time to teach everybody or whatever the issue was. But there's data on everyone. It can be addressed quickly, as you said, and at every level, so that the phrase "no student left behind" could be real for us.
I don't think you could have closed it off any better, Ola. I think that's exactly, I always, data is, it's the trees in the forest. You can see the forest. You just don't know what kind of trees are in the forest. Well, the more data you have is the more finite you can look at the information that you're getting, and you can start to compartmentalize and separate. And Ola, you said it. I think ultimately, if your true north is to ensure that no student gets left behind, then the technology makes sense. I think it's an easy win to integrate more and more technology into education. So with that being said, I think you guys have both done an extremely good job of saying the why, right? Why technology in education. So I'm a teacher, I'm online now. I may be passionate about what's happening with technology. I just have no idea how to integrate my passion for technology with the right technologies to bring into my classroom or my environment, or to advocate for. I'm a school administrator, I'm a decision maker at any position in that ecosystem within the school system. What kind of technology are you recommending to these persons, to these individuals that support what we now understand technology can bring to education?
Smart too.
All right, cool. Yeah, so I think in terms of like the different tools and things available to us, I think one of the things we wanted, well, we are doing at Smart Term is leveraging the power of integration. How do we bring other apps, other tools into the picture, into the fold, right? It's really difficult to build everything, right? And I think for us, bringing in these other players will go a far way. For example, we're bringing in, for example, a player called StudyFit. We're bringing in players who are in the content and who knows the content based on what they're doing. And we're trying to leverage the power of integration to create even more data points for our stakeholders to use in terms of intervention. And so for us, um, the I think where we are as a company and where we are at a pivotal point in our lives as individuals, you have a phone, right? And on that phone, they've done the singular thing is create like a single marketplace where you can get all these tools and access and apps, right? Education is no different. And some persons might learn by, for example, one of the platforms I use, all right, is called Headway. I listen to audiobooks. I love audiobooks. And not just that I love audiobooks, I love the summarized version of audiobooks. I don't mind filling in the pieces and the gaps, right? So I use Headway. I just want the nuggets. I want the nuggets. I want the facts. Others, they like to read, right? And others might love the visuals, right? They want the videos. And so, it's a thing where it's really hard to answer that in one silo because for everybody the answer is different. So the way I'm choosing to answer this question is by supporting integrations fully. Anything that you want to, you should be integrating what you're doing. And so when you look at the classroom, you look at helping the parent, etc., we need to be able to integrate tools that they want to use inside of our ecosystem so that they can access it, leverage it, use it to learn against what is currently being taught in the class, And then how do we use those data points to then drive analytics and drive engagement with the students, right? So for me personally, there's no one set of tools because it's so different for everybody. But what we do support is integrations, and we've always been open to that. So any integration, those who are listening, any integration you want, any apps you want, anything that you think would be useful, let us know, and we'll integrate it into SmartHub. And we already have a marketplace and an app store that is actively being built out, and we'll continue to do so. Yeah.
I will say for the everyday educator out there who, they might not have access to the all-in-one platform, definitely, as you said, any app, anything out there that you can use it. Um, Not so we're going away from being afraid of technology, including AI, but explore what is there, and then bring it into the classroom. During the pandemic, of course, everyone was teaching online, and one of the problems teachers had again was engagement. It was so much easier now to lose students because a lot of them, the cameras are off. You don't know what's happening behind there, and they're at home. Some of them are in their bed looking at the class, right? And so teachers started to integrate online tools, quizzes, and online platforms to help with student engagement. And I know teachers who have kept that after even returning to in-person classes because they saw the difference it made and because the students asked for it, right? Because with those, there's the immediate feedback, which is so important for learning. It's so helpful. There's also the competitive aspect of it, which students love, especially boys. And they were asking for it. One of the teachers was telling me, she said, they asked for it. When we came back in person, they said, Miss, can we do the online quizzes? And so there are teachers I know who within the school policy, they allow the students to use their phone in the class to be able to take a quiz, get it graded right there, and then they discuss something. Um, Even giving homework, giving assignments, using some of the software tools out there. So there are, for example, Khan Academy platform that is full of math and science, and they have a lot of the high school curriculum there. It's US based, but a lot of it is, of course, very common to what we need. And you assign homework, you get feedback, these students get scores, they have goals, there are medals, things they can look forward to. And all of this helps with engagement. Um, and of course, AI, whether it's in the form of any of the GPT platforms. So helpful. But learning how to use it to your advantage and also teaching students how to use it to their advantage, not for cheating, which I think most of them initially that's what they think it's for, right? But you can use GPT platforms as a personal tutor for immediate feedback.
Yeah. Yeah.
Teach your students how to ask questions, how to ask critical questions, how to ask good questions to the AI and get feedback that they need to help them as they learn. You can write an entire essay, and Miss doesn't have to mark it. If Miss is not available, you are just doing your practice at home, put the essay into the system and get feedback. And better yet, tell it what type of feedback you need. This is the rubric I'm being graded on. If this were an actual exam, please give me feedback so that I can improve in preparation for my exams.
Right.
And this is huge. There's so much that they can do just with this one platform with any of the GPT applications, and it can make such a difference. I'll give you one example. I was speaking to a law student recently, and they were saying that they don't have anyone in their family who's a lawyer, and they see the advantage among the other students who have that. I said, okay, but you also have GPT who knows everything there is that has ever been published, every case that has ever, happened in court. And you can ask your questions and find out. Ask your questions, get feedback, ask your questions. This is your at home personal tutor. Use it.
Yeah. I love what you said, and I think it makes a lot of sense leveraging like the AI tools and stuff like that. etc. And it brought me back to a time I was just thinking the other day and having a conversation with my friend, and I was just like, ChatGPT is our Wikipedia. I don't know if you remember Wikipedia back in the day, and you did your research, but that was our Wikipedia, right? Um, and so now we're getting the information much faster, and you don't have to necessarily read the entire page to get the summary of what you need
Yes.
to get, right? And so I'm thinking about that, and it's also our spell checker and our grammar checker. You remember when to depend on Microsoft Word to give us a little squiggly red line to tell us that the word wasn't spelled correctly, and then give us a little blue line when the sentence wasn't constructed right, right? And so, what it is today is just those tools evolved, in my opinion, right? And we all use those tools when we were in school, and now it's just very evolved. And so, it's interesting how now our kids they want to burst through because now they're getting there so much faster, but then the curriculum is saying no hold back. And so, you know, tooling is good, and so we need to figure out how we support our kids using those tooling as opposed to trying to guardrail it, because what's really happening is that they're bursting through and elevating on the curriculum a bit, but the curriculum is not quite where the tooling is, and so we kind of need to feel like that. And the next thing about it is asking critical thinking. I think just like Wikipedia, when you saw that information, you had to question it. Some persons didn't
Yes.
question it, of course, and some persons just grabbed it from the source and put it. But yeah, our kids need to learn to question things. And so, what I'm saying about the tooling in general, about like integration and bringing everything into the fold, is we can offer 100 things, but the teachers will have to be able to ask the right questions. Is this the right tool for my class based on where they are? I saw Karina ask about special education needs. Reality is that when you look at some of those things, you're not going to necessarily use the same tooling, in that context versus another context. You're going to have to be able to ask the right questions of the tools that you're using. Is it fit for purpose? Is this what we want to use? And how we can bring that into the fold to leverage in our classroom. And for that to happen, our educators have to be savvy enough with the technologies to be able to make the right choices and the right decisions. What will motivate the class? What will keep them engaged? That type of thing.
And definitely one important thing to add when exploring the different tools and apps available is to find out what feeds this app. What are the founders, the developers using to train the app? So applications that are being informed by the learning sciences, the science of learning, and how to program this so that it is actually beneficial to students and it's not just a question, answer, and feedback app. There are certain ones who actually use, you can see that they use the science of learning in their development. For example, Duolingo, very popular language learning app, it tracks your performance, of course, but not just giving you new words, new language, new sentences, but it keeps reintegrating the older language, the older vocabulary that you would have learned from the very beginning. Of course, this is natural with language, but it does it in a very intentional way that I could tell while using this app in the earlies that they understand learning. And so I recommended it to every student. I show them how to use it with intention. So you don't just get the question correct and you move on, but read, pay attention to the feedback that they're giving you because it's important. And so teaching students to still use that analytical thinking and go deep into the data that they're receiving is important. But also for educators in choosing the apps, look for those that are founded on proper learning science so that you know that the feedback that you're getting, the data you're getting, even the way it's programmed to help students, it makes sense that it actually promotes learning and it's not just busy work, it's not just homework, right? There are those that can give too much information at once. That's not what we want. You don't want to test too many new things at once. That's too much cognitive load. The students will get overwhelmed very quickly, two questions, and then leave. But there are those that are built very intelligently, and it's definitely important to look into how the app is being developed. And a lot of them share that information if they're doing it right.
Yeah.
amazing responses. I mean, it's so much I can comment on, but I'm going to throw out a couple things. You know, educators need a trusted partner, right? Somebody who's kind of bringing to them the best in class of what's available. And then from there, they can use discernment, which I think, Ola, you elaborated on so eloquently, to determine what is right for them in terms of, intensity of use and what the expectation of the application is in terms of helping to support educational practice within the classroom. But it's just, one thing I want to call out, and it's something we sometimes forget, especially when, as you've brought up post-pandemic, I think education has been fundamentally changed as a result of the pandemic. I have not seen it revert back to what it was before. I mean, many things have reverted back to what it was before. Some haven't, but I have to really, and I think that's something I take that as a compliment to educators across the region. I was very fortunate to be able to work with the Ministry of Education in St. Vincent, where I am, during the pandemic. And I think they saw that as a rally cry and as an opportunity to start to test the integration of technology into education. And they haven't stopped. Right? And then even more so, many Caribbean countries now are going through digital transformation processes, initiatives, right? So I think what you're finding is, because of that, there's going to be even more of an evolution in terms of education, because it'll be one of the facets of the government's work that would be digitized. But more so, once you digitize, it opens up a whole new ecosystem in terms of the ability to train, capacity building, readiness, literacy, in terms of use. All of these things are going to become even more critically important, and education is going to play a big part in that. And then finally, just talking about reasoning and critical thinking skills and all these things. Some people challenge that education's become very rudimentary. You don't have to have reasoning skills. You just have to, as Ola, as you said, you just have to be able to regurgitate the information, put it in your head and then spit it back out. I think what we're finding is technology has a way to integrate reasoning back into the curriculum at a much younger age. Writing a prompt is not easy. Writing a good prompt takes thought. It takes consideration, right? And so the ability to have persons thinking about what it is they want this tool to give them before the tool gives them information. I mean, the level of thought that goes into that is I think is something that we need to return to. We got that from books, right? When we were young, we got that from reading. We got that from church in some cases, listening to a pastor or a priest on a Sunday, right? Reasoning is not something that you pick up easily. It's not a course you can really take. So the ability to reintegrate reasoning skills into school, I think, is where, as you say, ChatGPT provides an opportunity for us to explore. So, to keep going, it's, as I said at the beginning, I knew this was going to be a really interesting topic, and I knew you guys were going to give a lot of really, really good information. We've talked about technology. We've talked about, technology as a whole, why. We've talked about how education gets integrated with technology into the classroom and how that helps teachers. I'd like to talk a bit about how it helps parents. Now, I'm a parent of 2 school-age children. One just completed his secondary school entry exams. My daughter's in Form 4. Education is, at the heart of every thought I have at this stage of life. I am lucky. I get access to a lot of education. I get to be the dumbest person in the room amongst some very, very smart people who are working in this area, like Ola, yourself, Shamir, the whole Smart Term team. I'm always absorbing this, right? So as a parent, because I know the fears of parents, you want your children to succeed, you want them to be ready, you want them to reach their full potential. And then, things like, neurodivergent learning and dyslexia and ADD and too much screen time and not enough, class time, and, their reading may be behind benchmarks, their numeracy is not where it needs to be. I mean, it's a swirling kind of, chasm of all the things that you need to try to understand as parents, and then be in partnership with teachers to, focus on your children's success. Help us. How do we use technology to bring that, into some kind of digestible plan? Maybe addressing some of the challenges that I've called out that parents are facing. What would you recommend?
Yeah. I do know there's a lot of anxiety as it pertains to parents, especially when it comes to the kids and learning. Uh, we in the Caribbean, there's also a lot of pressure that is applied to kids and learning, right? And we see that across the board. I think at Smart Term, what we wanted to do, or what we are doing, is providing information back to the parents in a timely manner so that they can intervene at home. One of the things that teachers always said to us is that we need parents to be more involved in what's going on at school. And what we saw was PTA. PTA is something that happens once or twice a term, but it's not enough touch points with the teacher to be able to say, hey, I can run this intervention plan at home with my kids, right? And we're seeing in a time where education is moving so quickly, parents need to be more informed. And so by having the teachers on a system that is same, the teacher is also on that system, and the work that's being done is being reflected just as quickly to the parent. That parent is now empowered at home to be able to intervene and help their child grow. And so it's no longer a black box where it's a report card in December, right before Christmas, that if your child is performing or not. And you could call it triggers for me, PTSD, whatever. My grades were tied to my Christmas present, right? And my grade was also tied to how much fun I'd have that summer, right? And so literally, you know, but again, needless to say, it's just too late in the cycle, right? If you could have intervened, starting September, it would have been much better. And so how fast we get information to our parents is extremely important. And we talked a bit about tampering and preparing for exams and stuff like that. If parents were at home and it was super easy to say, okay, you got 18 this math exam or math quiz, okay, what were the topics? Okay, and they're seeing that in front of them, and they're saying, "Oh, but you're off on decimals. Oh, that's good. I can focus here. Go. You don't need to know decimals as a parent because not every parent loves math, but you need to be able to say, okay, go to that topic there, click on it, and do some more decimal quizzes and see how you perform." But that simple thing like that is now helping the teacher inside the classroom get that child prepared for the exams and get that child prepared in terms of learning the math curriculum, right?
Mhm.
Like, how do we empower parents to one, they should know, it should be super transparent where their child is in every subject that they're learning. And you should have the content readily available for that parent to say, hey, go to that space, go to that resource space and engage in this content and learn, and being able to help their child at home whenever they need to. And teachers want this, parents want this, but we have to have them on the same tool to be able to achieve this. And I think that's extremely important. Also, one of the things we focused on, because once the parent is provided with enough information, that anxiety goes away. Now you feel like you have control. Now you feel like you can actually do something to help, right? And what happens today if you're a parent and you have the money? First thing you do is private tutor, extra lessons class, all of that stuff. You dump them into that. You still don't have the information that you need because you don't know what your child actually needs to succeed. You just know that I'm going to get them extra help, which is a good step, and it worked for a lot of us, right? And then on the other side, if you can't afford that, what then happens? The kid get left behind, right? They don't get the help that's needed. They might not succeed as much. And we have this case where it's just not fair and equitable, right? And so what we need to do is be able to provide parents with information, make it transparent so that they're not empowered to actually help at home. I think that's one of the biggest things we need to do for our parents in education as it is today. And we'll see a lot of improvement across the board, just providing that transparency on a child's performance. I don't know how much times I've seen on my report cards growing up, Shamir is a good student, but he doesn't apply himself. What does that mean? My parents don't know that, right? But I got good grades, but Shamir could do so much more. What does that mean, right? My parents could have done a lot better with, yeah, he just needs to work on fractions and he'll be fine, right? That would, make them feel more at ease, make them feel, the main exams, the entrance exams and the CXCs, they'll be much more comfortable if they know that, okay, it's just a couple topics, mommy and daddy. Don't worry too much, right? They'll feel much better and they'll be less panicky, right? So the reality is transparency around the performance of of the child. If we can provide that, parents will feel much better and they can actually help and intervene where necessary. Right?
100% agree. I think very important what you're saying about empowering parents through the data so that they're able to respond to it. Even with the example you gave with decimals, apart from saying do more decimal exercises, they can also integrate that into every day around the house. There's something, okay, we need to, we're making this bread, this cake, and it's half a cup of flour. How much is that as a decimal? And you let them do it right then and there. So the ability to integrate conversations around what they're learning, because you have the live feed about what is happening in school, and you bring it into the house, into everyday life, because this too helps to make the learning more relevant, apply it more, and as long as students are able to elaborate on what they're learning, you can have these conversations, make connections, because they haven't lived a lot, they don't know, they don't see the relevance of everything. But parents have that advantage of we have life lived, we have seen practical applications of social studies, business, all of these things. Let's have conversations about it. And often you ask, what did you all do in school today? I can't remember. I don't know. I just want to sleep. I don't understand, but they've forgotten by the end of the day. But with the information now, you can integrate it into conversation, integrate into life at home from the youngest straight up to the eldest, even with topics or subjects that parents are not familiar with. At least you can bring it in somehow. You can engage the students in conversation around it. As far as it relates to the apps and learning, one of the things would be to know what exactly your child needs their device for, what apps are being used in school, so that you know if they say that they need a phone to do this geography homework. No, your geography teacher hasn't been using anything on the computer. You don't need your phone. Or, okay, yes, I know you're working. I know you need your phone to do the research, to look for topics for the SBA, whatever it is. Okay, fine, go ahead. Let me know when you're finished. I see too often phones just getting banned. No phone. You did this wrong. You stepped out of line. You were rude. Whatever it is. Phone ban. 2 weeks. Okay, but now how does that affect the students? Apart from the basic punishment, now they don't have access to the class chat. They have to, everything is now slow in coming, aside from the fact that it affects their socialization as well, right? So we have to rethink how we go about placing restrictions with technology, knowing that it is necessary, it is a part of learning now, right? And then balancing it still with, like you said, books that we gained so many skills from, because we were more books than videos growing up. Balancing the technology with the books, whether it's books on screen or actual paper books, balancing technology with puzzles, with live action things that are not on the screen, because these are still necessary, but in balance. So it's not no technology, no devices, no apps, no internet, but it's also not all technology, everything on the computer, everything on the phone. There has to be balance, but definitely more information, like you said, empowers parents, and the understanding that they have to be involved. The students who excel are the ones whose parents are involved, not just throwing money at the situation, like you said, lessons, a tutor, but you are a part of a three-part system. That is the student, the educators, and the support at home, the parents. And it's so important for parents to know that they need to be integrated into that system on all levels, on knowing what's happening, as well as emotional support and having a structured home, all of that. And not just, well, you're doing the work, I know you're doing the work, good. You're getting the help, I know what, because I'm paying the help, paying for the help, good. But really being informed and involved will make such a difference.
Wow. Agree, 100%. As a parent, I cannot agree more with what's being said. I'm just seeing one comment, and I wanted to address it. Melissa Ann Phillips, she says, the idea of having parent workshops more often. I think that's a wonderful idea. And I also saw a previous comment talking about, sometimes the parents are disconnected. Well, I think, a lot of times the disconnection comes from fear. I think transparency, as Michelle Lilly speaks to here, transparency is key. I think you're right, and I think transparency on both sides. Like if your child's had a great day, how does that get communicated to parents, right? Because sometimes the kids don't even remember they've had a good day. Maybe they, something. We were better at rewarding children for good behavior, and the smaller things when they're in like preschool and and primary school, right? Sometimes you get a student of the week, you get a little plaque, or you get a little certificate, that's student of the week. Maybe there's a way to digitize that, right? It's my son's name is Kamal. Kamal, I get sent an SMS message to my phone with a gold star that says, just wanted you to know Kamal's had an excellent week this week. And it's something where, again, you can set it up where teachers and parents, they're talking to each other, but we're doing it again in familiar ways. I have friends I talk to exclusively through memes. Exclusively through memes. We don't really type a sentence to each other. I'll send a meme, they send a meme back. We're having a full-on conversation, right? So I think we're getting to the point where we need to start to figure out how to use some of the ways that we communicate on these platforms as well. I also always believe, again, no child left behind, no parent left behind. Not all parents have gotten the opportunity to have full formal education, right? We have, and this is by no means, calling anything out, but in some, they may be carpenters, they may be plumbers. They haven't gone through a formal education system. They've gone through an apprenticeship or something like that. The school system wasn't even good to them. So they may have concerns about the school system naturally that then get passed on to their children, right? So I also think that, sometimes when a parent is disconnected, it's also because the parent needs a support system. And I think
Yes,
they're
definitely.
already on their phones, right? They're on this. They're on every social media platform. I'm in about 9 WhatsApp groups, whether it be for school, girl guides, school projects, all of these things. So there's a way, I think, for us to look at how we can utilize some of this technology, and make sure that we can pull every parent into kind of the discourse about their child, and not be afraid, because you can't fix what you don't know, right?
Yes.
And to go
You
back to
are
what
speaking
Shamir
my language.
says, yeah, like the PTSD, sometimes, it's the parent thinking, Jesus, how do I even, I know I was rotten in school. How am I now, supposed to help my child? I don't even feel qualified, right, to be able to even go to sit down with the teacher and have a conversation about it and understand. So, digitization also gives us an opportunity to simplify, right? And it could be that you get the information on your phone, but it allows you to click into it and all get more explanation of what something means or something. We got the technology. There's things we're doing in technology now that, 5 years would have blown our mind. 2 years would have blown our mind. 6 months ago would have blown our mind. How do we integrate that into education? And I know, I'm confident in saying this. I think, a lot of this, I see Shamir smiling. So it's either on a roadmap already in development, or it's been added to the list, which I think is the beauty of what Smart Terms doing, is that they're iterating as they go. And they're very much looking at the entire Caribbean education system, and figuring out where the gaps are and what solutions they can bring to the table. So they're an incredible education partner. Incredible.
You
We
gave a
have been
great tip
talking.
while you
Sorry,
were
go ahead.
speaking just now. You gave a great tip there, which is to use the technology with your students. As parents, use the technology with your child so that they can see and feel that it's safe. Because often one thing is being communicated with words and then another is being communicated with actions. But you want to bring the two together so that they feel safe and they feel that technology is good. But yes, it has to be monitored, all of that. So where you say, and I actually told a parent this recently, share memes with them, like message them memes, be a part of that world with them, right? Sitting and using technology together, whether it's the devices, the phones, not just to block each other out and be in your own world, but find some way to connect through it will be very helpful as well.
Yep, absolutely. Ola, I really must commend you this evening because I think you've really shared some just superb strategies about how to just mindfully and responsibly use technology. You know, even as a parent, you've given me some incredibly great insights because a lot of times it's throw the baby out with the bathwater, right? That's, you know what I mean? It's either it's all or nothing. And, you know, you're making me rethink. I actually took my son's phone away. Um, Starting his second term. Now I've seen improvement in his attention, but now you have me thinking about what is he missing because he doesn't have the device. So I'll have to explore that. And I appreciate that because, you know, again, we have so much anxiety about doing the right thing, right? The right thing used to be so simple. You know, back when, you know, even we were in school. I was saying at an event last week, you know, if you're over 30 years old, you know, you're older than the internet, you know. You know, if you're 40 years old plus, you're older than the internet. Um, Google came out in 1998. 1998, you know, it's not hard to be older than Google. You know what I mean? So it's like we've lived with technology longer than sometimes we realize. So it's also the ability to remind persons of that as well. But you know, the insights that you're giving, I think, are, you know, extremely commendable because they are kind of a roadmap of how you really integrate technology into your life, into your child's life, and then, you know, the critical thing is, I think, with parents is just it's education, helping them understand more about their child, you know, less about the competition part of it, because I think that's what drives a lot of insecurity, as Shamir has talked about, and a lot of pressure. This, you know, my child's not top 10, my child's not first. You know, I like to believe, and I say this to my son all the time, that if every flower in the garden bloomed at the same time, we wouldn't really, you know, we'd have a beautiful garden, but for a very short time. I said the magnificence of nature is that everything is happening at different times in life. And so, you know, you'll bloom when you're ready, right? And I think these are the kinds of things that if I think of myself as a parent, it's how do you lovingly, it's not the ones that are A students, it's not the ones who are excelling, it's how do we lovingly support both the child and parent when the child is not performing, when the child is second last in class, when the child's not meeting the learning benchmarks. That child's not a child left behind. That child blooms differently. They learn differently. And so it's educating the parent about that. And I think technology can do that and the analytics can do that. And then that also lets them know that it's not hopeless, right? That technology is also going to give them tools and strategies and techniques on how they can now support their child, right? You know, before, back in the day, you know, we all grew up in these kind of, oh, you know, you little dunce, you know, you little dunce, I know how you gonna make it, but, you know, and your sister's smart, but I don't know what happened to you, your sister could do well and you ain't doing good. You know, this cultural, right? One thing, though, fundamental to the Caribbean consciousness is a celebration, support, and passionate support of education. But I do think sometimes, you know, we don't go about the delivery of it in the right way. But I do think we're evolving. And so the use of technology can also help us find new ways to have the conversations we need to have with our children, with teachers. And also parents need to be advocates. Advocates because, you know, they can advocate at a wider level too, within the corporate world, with their ministers of government, their representatives in their neighborhoods. You know, put education as a priority for everybody, right? Because it's right now, it is truly a call to action because of all that is happening in the world. Um, we cannot afford to miss this next wave of evolution, and so it's going to take all of us very stealthily focused on where technology is going to make sure that we're not left behind in this next phase of our evolution globally as a people, right? But still also protect and in sometimes retake a lot of our cultural identity that has necessarily been underserviced or underfocused on in the systems that we have now. So we have a wonderful opportunity. We're winding down. We're, just over an hour. We have about 15, I'm going to take 15 minutes, 10, 15 minutes. I'd like you guys to touch on, the future, and think aspirationally about this. Don't think about, what's maybe on the horizon in 6 months or maybe on the horizon in a year. What do you see? What do you want to see happen in technology, in education? What's the future trends? What's the innovations? What's the things that have you excited? What are the things that we need to be watching out for next 5, 10 years?
Yeah. Great question. I think I'll give two pieces of it. All right. I'll give the where what I kind of see in 5 years and what I kind of see long term. As being a visionary in the space and where I would like to see things go. I think in the short term, what will happen is a lot of curriculum reform, of course, to meet the current demands, and we're going to have a lot of our kids becoming critical thinkers in the way that we're trying to steer them, and we're going to see education kind of shift because it's going to be more inquisitive. It's going to be more, I want to learn this, I want to learn that, and they're going to have the resources to go and learn this and that. We're going to have more choices. So traditional topics and subjects as we know them today will change. Kids will be learning there's some semblance of it today with micro credentialing, right? There's a lot of micro credentialing going on today. That's going to accelerate. So I want to learn about deep photosynthesis and how it works and dive fully into this. And it's very accessible to me, and I don't need to be generic about it. I want to learn everything about this particular topic. And you might have someone who's teaching that and diving into that, and then you're using AI to create practical implementations of that and diving deep into a particular topic. There's going to be a lot of micro credentialing going on. So that's kind of where I see things going. And how do we unlock that? How do we make that accessible to students? So now they're not coming in to learn math, English, science, Spanish, etc., trying to study for 8 subjects. I see this going in a space where, okay, these are what the school is offering, and it's like 50 different topics that they're offering, and I choose this term to learn these 5, right? And they're going to be able to learn, and they're going to be in an environment where they can learn these small microbytes or micro subjects, and they're going to now start looking at what they like, what they want, and then specialization is going to be very different than what it looks like today. Today, at 18, I have to choose if I'm going to be a doctor, lawyer, businessman, engineer. It's so much pressure at such a young age. I lucky for me, I knew I wanted to do in computers, right? I got lucky. But a lot of people don't know, and it's so much pressure to have them decide so early. I do see a landscape where we're going to learn different, like small bites of information, and then they're going to be able to choose, like, okay, I want to try that. I want to try that. There's going to be a lot more experimenting in education because kids are going to have the ability to choose. With that being said, our teachers, prepare yourselves for this, because whether we like it or not, they're getting less and less motivated to do current curriculum. They want to learn everything. And as teachers, we're now going to have to adapt to that and say, hey, okay, let's diversify. Your prompt game will have to be really, really good, and you're gonna have to meet your kids where they are, right? And so we're gonna see a lot more topics because that's how kids will want to learn. They're not gonna want to learn everything about the math curriculum anymore. They just want to learn about trigonometry and then they'll move on to something else, right? And we have to make that flexible. Now, long term, where I think the world will go, and I don't really know if I mind it going there, but that might just be my geeky tech nerdy side of things. I'm just gonna get up one day. I'm going to plug something here, and I'm like, teach me everything about BMW and how the engine works. And in 5 minutes, I'll get all the information about BMW and thing, and I'll just know it going forward, and it's done. Right? I didn't need to go to mechanic school. I didn't need to go to BMW's head office in Germany to go learn anything, etc. I just put the thing here and learned it in 5 minutes, and I moved. Right? And so, learning to go work is going to change in the future. I'm not learning anymore to go get a job. I'm learning because I also want to learn it. And if I choose to work, I work. And if as humans we're smart enough, and my friends on the call would know that I'm a utopian, right? Oh, we know that I'm a utopian, right? They're gonna be like, Shammer, you know that's not realistic. No, machine should work for us. All this AI stuff we're doing, the agents that are coming out soon, they should work for humans. And as humans, we should decide if we want to work or not. If we want to go work, work. And so for me, we're no longer going to, or we should no longer have to go to school to get a job. Um, Working is a choice. Basic things like light, water, housing are provided to us as humans. And if you want to work, you decide that you want to be a visionary, you want to go there and change the world and make it better. You chose to do it. And so anything I want to learn, I can get up and learn it in 5 minutes, and the information is just in my brain, and that's it. Uh, and so that's what I think we'll get to. And they've learned to talk to the brain. They've learned to understand the different signals and then, trigger action from it. Like I said earlier in the call, there's someone who can literally play the same video game that I'm playing just from thinking about the actions they want to take. Because again, they are not able to move their hands or feet. So we're already getting there. It's already becoming a thing. Short term, kids will want to learn what they want to learn, and you can't force them to learn what they don't want to learn. That will change, and you can't do anything about it. It's just happening. It's happening right now. And long term, just plug something here, learn it, and move on. Muted all.
What you're saying in terms of the short-term changes in education and children only wanting to learn what they want to learn, it's already happening. And that's part of why we're seeing the lack of motivation. So I've been saying this in terms of how education is changing. Schools and universities are no longer the gatekeepers of knowledge. It's everywhere. You can learn whatever you want. You go online and you get it. And so the way institutions are structured will have to change. The way degrees and qualifications are structured, because just as you're saying, there are micro credentials and they are proper credentials, right? A lot of them well recognized. Some of these professional certifications are even more recognized than a degree in certain fields because they know that you learned exactly what you needed to do this job well, and you got the practical skills to go with it, the experience to go with it. And so education is already changing in that sense, and this is one of the reasons we need to adapt our curriculums, because just giving content, we used to have to learn all these things because we had to know it, we had to carry it around in our heads because it wasn't available at the tap of a finger. Now it is. So what do we need to teach now? We need to teach skills. We need to teach the critical thinking you spoke about, the reasoning that you spoke about, Fanta, because these are the things that will make a difference and that will give you the cutting edge, because everyone has the knowledge, everyone has the content. Can you ask the right questions? Can you create the right prompt? Can you sift through that information critically to refine it, to get the right answers, to make the code work better, whatever it is? Because this is what will be needed. This is where your education really makes a difference. And this is what education will mean. Not just content. You're not really educated if you just have content. And this is why I talk about true learning, as you mentioned in the introduction, because we need to learn the things that will make a difference. We need to learn in such a way that we can learn anything and we can impact, we can find solutions with the skills that we have and not just with knowledge. Knowledge is not enough. And so this is one of the ways I believe technology is changing education. And although education has changed, learning has not changed. And what I mean by that is the way we learn has not changed. And so the more we understand how people learn, how students learn, how we digest information, how we process what it takes to actually master something, this is what will make the difference in going forward, in spite of the changes in education and technology and AI and the different tools, because that will keep changing. If there's the underlying understanding of how we learn, how we take in, process, and use information, how memory works, all of these things, then that is where we will find the cutting edge in whatever tools we develop nationally, regionally, across the whole technology landscape. That's what's going to make the difference in terms of education, as far as technology, as far as education is concerned. And I'm with you with that utopian vision. um, there's so much possibility for us. We really have to ask the right questions and figure out, what we really need, because there's a lot that we're doing now that is rusty, it's dusty, it's not necessary anymore, and we need to refine things, how we're spending, change it for where we're going in the future. And to be able to see that far ahead in the future is it's useful, because then we have a clearer understanding of if we're on the right path right now with the changes we're making, even across. So we saw several years ago in Trinidad and Tobago, we had the textbook um, drive where the government was providing textbooks to the schools. That was a big spend for the government. It was very helpful. It helped address equity and those problems. Now, what do we have to do? Some years later, there was laptops for all students who entered secondary school. That was helpful. That was a change, a step in the right direction. Now, what do we need to do?
Right.
And that's how things are going to continue shifting on a national level. We have to see, where are we going, not where are we now, because some of these things were a little two steps behind, right? A little too late, right? So we have to see where we're going and how can we get there in time,
Yeah.
so that the students aren't left behind, teachers are not overwhelmed with the changes. Educate the teachers,
Yeah.
educate parents.
Yeah.
That's what we need, and that's where I see us going, if
Yeah.
we are mindful, if we take notes, and if
Yeah.
we act fast and dedicate the resources towards it.
Yeah. And you mentioned, what changes we need to make to kind of go into the future. I mean, um, we went to Colombia. We were invited by the World Bank to kind of participate in some of the initiatives that are going on. Education was one of the things that they were talking about at the time. And World Bank, sorry, IDB. And one of the studies that came out, like in the Caribbean, we're 5 to 10 years behind the most advanced education system, right? And I went to China to do an education management program. I spent 30 days there, and I'll tell you, the technologies that they were using in the classroom was far so far. You mentioned focus. They're using technology that lets them know when the kids aren't focused in the classroom, and they can identify that they're distracted, right? And there's an innovator in Trinidad who's actually doing this currently.
Yes,
Or
yes.
just but the thing is, like, he's doing it now. Again, they were doing it 5 years ago, 6 years ago, right? And so, how do we catch up as a region? And one of the things that I want to push for our leaders to understand, it's not outsiders that are going to these countries and territories to fix or fix their education system or push for change. It's the persons who live there and are experiencing it. They're the ones who are innovating and doing this. And in our region, we've outputted so many talented, skilled individuals who can come home and actually make change. I can tell you how many persons on your Amazon, Microsoft, Google's, all these places who are building and managing large portfolios, billions of dollars. They can do this. They can build the technologies. And our countries have invested so much in them. I know they will invest in their country. And the reality is, no one is going to put in the time and effort the way we would in our own countries. And we need
Mm-hmm.
to start looking inward to fixing our problems. We're
Mm-hmm.
heavily invested in fixing it because our kids are coming up in the same school system. We want our kids to be globally competitive. right? But I think that our governments need to look inward, look at the solutions that are here, look at this. Like importing a solution could sometimes work, but the persons who are building that solution might not be invested in the type of direction you want to go. How do we look at solving some of our own problems, and how do we invest in those technologies that are directly depending on the success of our countries, for our kids, for the growth of our businesses, all of those things. And I can't urge it more enough. As we go forward and as we're looking to grow at our pace as our country, are the solution providers you're working with on that same mission? And if it's not, it can't work, right? So we need to start looking at how we solve our own problems. Ola, you're on the call, a very experienced. You could clearly know what you're talking about, clear what you're doing. Are you at the table? Are you making those types of impacts? We need to come together as a collective group and inform the way forward. Or what will happen is we'll continue being 5 to 10 years behind, because I can tell you another provider outside is not going to be invested in whether Trinidad, whether Jamaica, whether St. Vincent, whether Antigua on the call. And guys, feel free to drop your flags. I'm not seeing the flags. Drop your countries, right? But are we choosing the right players to invest in our countries as we move forward? Because that is important if we're going to catch up and level with the rest of the world.
You've expressed what I've been saying. In every country, in every community, if there's a problem, the people in the community have already thought of 100 ways to fix it, and somewhere there is the solution in in collaboration with the technocrats, the experts who the government had access to. They can bring their minds together and do that, because that the government is only made up of a small percentage of the talents of the country. They do well, but they don't know everything. So we have to reach into the communities, into the people on the ground who are living with the problems. And this is in any area, in any whatever field. Ask the people, and there are solutions right there. I 100% agree with you. And there are so many of us doing things on our own, an initiative here, an initiative here, a company there, an app here, an app there. Definitely, there needs to be more collaboration for there to be bigger impact, and for our voices even to reach further to the ears that can make decisions that will impact nationally and across the Caribbean, across the globe.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, your version of the world is worth fighting for. It's worth creating. I think, you've touched on some massively important topics. I think, Shamir, I think we got the call to action loud and clear. Come home. Come
Yeah.
home. I mean, you know what I mean? I say it all the time. You know, your home needs you, whether you're Antiguan, you're St. Lucian, Barbadian, wherever you are in the Caribbean. The Caribbean needs you. What I'm happy about and I'm excited about is that even if we're 5 years behind, I think we can accelerate and get there. The things that held us back before, things that are form part of our history as a people in the region, are no longer the limits that hold us. We are all independent, self-empowered, with challenges, but we own our destiny, you know. And so we are in a position to be able to capitalize on this wave of evolution that's coming. The industrial age was built on our backs, right? We were not in a place to be able to take advantage of the technology wave when it first started. We couldn't capitalize on computerization and the evolution of the internet when it happened. And so those early adopters and those early investors were able to get that push. But we're ready now, right? And we don't have the same limits we had before. And you're seeing it more and more, the level of empowerment, the level of self-awareness, and the level of commitment to us getting where we need to go. And I believe this fundamentally, the education system is not broken. The Caribbean education is not broken. I am the proud daughter of an English teacher from Point Fort in Trinidad. And I know wholeheartedly that the education that my children get in the Caribbean is way above what they would be getting in any North American school. And I'm confident of that, and I commit to that. And it's why, even why I am so invested in this topic, because as you say, Shamir, it's about our children, it's about their future and the children's future and their children's future. And it's also the ability to build out capacity and create systems and find the next Shamir and the next Ola and the next Fanta, because we're not here forever. So we need to start capacity building. And it doesn't happen if the development's happening someplace else. It needs to happen where people see it and feel it, so that they can want to be part of it and want to engage and want to figure out how and come and get mentored. And so these things are all incredibly important to the future civilization of the Caribbean, right? Simply put. Now, before we close, I don't know if there's any questions. I want to thank all of those who've stayed with us through this hour and a half discussion. That is it's never waned, or it's never gotten boring. It's been extremely, important things that have been covered tonight. Very inspiring discussing this topic with both of you. Are there any questions from anybody on the live feed? We have people from Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, and LinkedIn who all would have access, and we also have our members of Greenby who would be listening in on these platforms from Nigeria as well. So I open the floor for a few minutes in case there's anyone who has any questions they'd like to ask the panel.
While we wait for the questions, there was one earlier concerning special education engagement
Yes.
for technology. And while it would be a lot of information to give to say how you can use technology for someone with special education needs, because the spectrums are so diverse in each diagnosis, and there are so many different cases. What I can say is to find out, because I know that quite often for students with special needs and students who do not have special needs or simply just behavioral problems, a phone, a tablet might be given to keep them quiet, right? Or that might be the only thing that they like, and otherwise they fuss, and depending on what their issue is. But some of these things might be contributing to, might be exacerbating the problem in terms of attention and behavior and poor communication, lack of communication skills or language with the child, in their language development and all of that. So it means paying attention, finding out, reading, talk to experts, and of course parents with children with special needs are talking to experts, but find out in the details, how can I do better? Like, I see the good in technology, but if there is any overlap between good and bad, I want to know. For example, I one of my clients has a one of her students is on the autism spectrum, and of course, the tablet or the phone will be given because she will keep quiet, right? But what are the shows she's watching? What are the videos she's watching on the tablet? Some of them are too overstimulating. They have too much movement, too much color, too much happening, right? There's a whole list. If you Google, there's a list of shows for children that are not so mentally stimulating, right? Whether it's in the type of music in the videos, or the amount of movement, those are things that you can look at and find out. People are creating technology, they're creating apps, they're creating shows with your children in mind, no matter where they are on whichever spectrum or whichever diagnosis. There are people who are out there doing the work to meet the needs to meet these special needs. So ask the questions, ask GPT, and they will tell you. Google might not be able to give you the specific answer you want, but ask Copilot, ChatGPT, one of these tools, and they can lead you to the information.
Thank you, Ola. We have a question from Michael. How can EdTech facilitate in any way the improvement of student mental health?
Uh, yeah, so it it can help, but again, it can help. So let me just start off by saying there are courses, there are things that you can content you can deploy on edtech platforms that will help students better prepare for that. I think first off the bat is to acknowledge that there is such a thing. You know, when we were growing up, there wasn't no such term, right? And so anything you're facing, anything you're doing, tough it out. You know, you're strong. Come through that. You know, everybody's expected to perform at the same level, doing the same things, handling the same type of pressures and stress, and it's just not true. We all come from different places, different backgrounds. We grew up in different areas, different family dynamics. There's so many things that are there. I think one that's introducing it early enough is important in education system, letting persons understand that there is such a thing. Also teaching that don't self-diagnose, because that happens a lot, and it's sometimes oftentimes like incorrect diagnosis. So we should try to stay away from that. So it has to be taught in the right way. But there are platforms that you can use to kind of teach about it, so you're understanding, you're aware of it, and so you're empathetic when you need to be. And then you pair that with the right counseling platforms, right? So like today, there's a lot of counseling platforms out there that you can just be completely virtual and talk to someone about what's going on and get the help that you need. Choose wisely. Again, those things can be dangerous. And then because the persons that where you are talking to might not be qualified, there are licensed professionals who you can talk to, and so the education will help steer you in the right direction in terms of choosing the right counseling partner when needed. And what I see them exploring with now, which I I'm not going to co-sign any, because I'm not writing the technology, so I don't know. But I try to use AI as natural mechanisms for persons to talk to AI as an outlet for some of these things. Now, again, I don't know of any platform, so I'll not recommend any, and I can't, co-sign any. But there are, Michael brought up, there's more awareness to that space. And I think, yeah, in schools, we need to bring that up as something that kids need to know and be aware of, and be taught in the right way, in terms of like, when you're embracing this, be empathetic, don't self diagnose, talk to licensed professionals in the space. And for parents, especially, parents need to learn what this is, and so that they can work with their kids if necessary. But yeah, I wish it was something that we knew about growing up. It wasn't taught to us, and it wasn't something that is now like um, um, socially taught, but now it needs to be formally taught, and it needs to be at the education level in school, and then the persons are taught what to do if intervention is needed. Right.
Definitely awareness and acknowledgement that mental health, mental and emotional health is a part of a student and it also affects their performance. This is something that needs to be integrated in everyday life and everyday conversations about performance, about academics, about student health, because we're one complete human, one system. And if you're not eating well, it can affect your performance. If you're not sleeping well, it can affect your performance. If you have, thoughts that are running through your mind all the time, if you have heartbreak, all of these things can affect performance. If there's discord in the home and, something is happening with the parents' relationship, all of these things. So acknowledging that is important for parents, teachers, and the students themselves to know. And it would be good if, just like we have the software that's tracking focus, if we have software that could track internal atmosphere, because it makes a difference how much I can receive from my teacher if I am in a good headspace,
So it's
right?
gauging mood, I think, is what you're talking about, the ability to gauge mood.
Yeah.
And if you're seeing mood consistently be low, right? Like over the last 3 days, Kamal has registered as low. Then it's something that you can maybe pull them and go a little bit deeper as to what the source is of or the cause. Yeah.
Yes. So if we think about, like you said, our system in the Caribbean is not broken. We have had excellent education for years. And if we ask why, or if you ask why the teachers you rate as these were some of my best teachers, if you ask why, you would realize that these are the teachers who paid attention to me, who saw me beyond my grades. These are the teachers who would see you seem to be really low lately. What's happening? Is everything okay at home? And if we integrate these things into technology, if we're handing more of our education and our teaching to technology, then we need to integrate these things into technology to make it really holistically effective. So if you can track anxiety, and there is, there are medical tools to track these things, the levels, the dopamine levels, and all of these things that are happening, chemical levels in the brain, then we can know, okay, this something is going on here. This student is too anxious to learn right now. What is overwhelming him about this situation? Is it the content? Is it the topic? Is it who the group he's placed with? Is it where he's positioned? What is happening here? We can't continue until we figure out, because we'd be wasting time. Why am I teaching to a student who is over anxious in this moment, or mood is very low? We can't continue. We need to address this, otherwise this lesson is not going to hit. It would be great if that could be included in technology.
That's, but I think this is,
Utopian.
again, yeah, like the beauty of technology is nothing's off the table, right? It's just how it gets implemented. And I believe digitization is about solving problems. It's about simplification. It's about decomplicating some of these things, right? So I think maybe, Shamir, you might have to put this one on the list as well, because it can
Yeah.
start with small kind of measures and then be expanded. Michael, thank you so much for the question. I think it was a really important one. And as always, Ola, your response on, why, the relationship between mental health and learning is something that I think we forget. Again, Shimmer, you brought it up. We say, oh yeah, you're fine. You'll get over it. You're so young. How could you be so unhappy, or what you're depressed about? We have this kind of language of, you shouldn't feel that way. But it's chemistry, right? It's chemistry, it's environmental challenges, it's the same social media sometimes that we say is positive can be negative. It's managing their digital, appetite and what they're seeing, etc. All of these things, they do create sometimes an environment where these things can manifest. So it looks like this is our only question, but a brilliant one it was. Thank you again, Michael. And so I think we should wind down now. So I just wanted to, actually, Ayodele is saying here, Allegory in Trinidad and Tobago is a startup that is addressing this problem.
Yes.
So maybe there is partnership opportunity there, right? Who knows? But, as we wind down, I wanted again thank all those who participated in the event this evening. Are there any closing thoughts from either of you?
I I am just very, very happy right now, because this type of conversation is so needed. These are the things that I think about and talk about every day. And some of the things you said earlier in the discussion, I wasn't able to respond to, but these are so important in terms of the way we think, focusing on skills, critical thinking, um, asking right questions, not so much on content. There's a certain amount of content we need, yes, but everything else is available. Tap, tap. What do we need to focus on? That will really give our students the edge and the ability to survive better into the world, in the world that they're growing into right now. And so technology for education is a big part of this, but coupled with every technological advancement, we have to have the human component. We have to ask those human questions and bring things down to why, how exactly is this going to, is this going to meet every need, right? What How will people respond to this? Because there are so many fears around technology and AI and all of these things. We have to address those. Otherwise, the general public, parents, teachers will not run to adopt the new technology. So there has to be so much awareness. Conversations like these must happen. The more we know, the less we will fear, and the more we will be able to efficiently adopt advancing technology for education. And so, thank you, SmartZoom, for hosting this. And I look forward to the rest of this webinar series. I know it will impact, and I look forward to the ideas that you've raised coming to life in the near or far future, but definitely steps in the right direction. And I hope that those with the power to change things, to make decisions are listening.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think, yeah, same. So, for me to sum it all up, every country, every school right now needs to put an engine in place, something core to the development of the technology that they're going to be adopting in the school. So it needs a core engine. And it has to happen now. It can't be next year. It can't be 2 years from now. The change needs to happen right now. That digital transformation is so pivotal to how we succeed as in our countries, in our schools, and it's at this point that it's really hard to happen if we don't have the right core in place. The next thing is that data analytics that Ola mentioned earlier, and it was a great point. How quickly we access that data is how quickly we can intervene and make the changes that are required to improve our schools, to improve student learning outcomes, to improve country and our policies around education and what we do. Once those core things are in place, then we can literally, after we get at that point, we can catch up because now we can deploy the technologies on top to meet specific needs and demands of our ecosystem. Not just try to be generic, but actually be very specific with what we're trying to solve. So, for example, simple thing, and this is what having a core system would unlock. Simple thing like, okay, we're surrounded by water most of our islands. What if we wanted to use the water to make water free for everybody in a utopian sense, right? Now we churn out 10,000 engineers who can work on plants to make water free for the rest of the island, right? And have the expertise that's required. Now we can do specialized and push people into specific industries. Now we're literally using education to solve specific problems that our country has. We're surrounded by wind, water, and sunlight. There's no reason why we can't make electricity near free, if not free,
Mhm.
right? And we can, of course, use education to solve that specific problem. So what I'm saying is, it's much easier to do it once you have the right core in place. And I think the time for that core, that digital transformation, has to happen now. We have to pick the struggles that we want to have, and education is not one of them. And the time to change that is right now. That will then change our trajectory and outlook for the next 30 years. Our countries like to put out 30-year plans, 50-year plans. What does education look like within those plans? And the time to challenge ourselves is right. So that's what I'll close in. We have to change it now if we want the next 30 to 50 years to look different.
And I just want to
Wonderful.
add,
Yes.
for we're not just talking to administrators and governments and ministries of education, but the parents and educators to, adopt technology, use it, don't be afraid, find out. Like, find out. The more you find out, the more you explore, it will be so much easier for you. It will reduce the anxiety, the fears around it, and it will be easier to communicate with your students and get them engaged, get them involved, and get them moving forward. So don't wait for the school to adopt smart term. Start using what you can, get the permission within the policies of the school, all of that, and do what you can to promote more of education technology in helping your students learn.
Thank you very much, Ola. And thank you very much, Shamir. Again, another call to action, you know. I'd like to end on a quote from Ayodele, who says that Ayodele Pompey is the CEO of Smart Term. And he says, there is no problem in the Caribbean where education is not a critical component of the solution. I think there's no more profound way to end. Thank you for spending time with us this evening. This is the first in a series, so please look out for more of these discussions. Thank you for your participation. And on behalf of Smart Term, have a good night, good evening.